Derek and I are excited to come to this whole idea of like unpacking the design process. And it's interesting when you think about the design, the downstream side of unpacking the design process. Derek just got back from Japan yesterday.
Yeah.
And because he was unpacking the design process on the downstream side of things, I got on the last seat in Atlanta last night at 10 o'clock. Only just made it here, so it's kind of interesting, but that's very much in context of kind of where design fits and how it you continually engage downstream and upstream. But anyway, we wanted to talk today a little bit about the Roomba product development process, and really just the engagement of and collaboration between, in many ways, consultant and corporation. But also wanted to talk a lot about just the process itself. So this is a little bit of a case study about just how we drive a robotic vacuum cleaning product to market. So with that, I'm going to talk about a few things just in terms of how we align things inside an organization, developing the background that forms the structure behind the design process, the development process itself, some interesting kind of just discussion about what happens when we think design's complete, and a little bit of discussion about the results. So just in terms of thinking about robotics, it's estimated that about 1.96 million domestic robots of all types were sold compared to 2011. This represents an increase of about 53%. Sales of domestic robots used for a variety of tasks are predicted to reach about 15.5 million units in the period between 2013 and 2016. And the market is growing. There's 8 million home robots sold worldwide, 6 continents, 50 countries, and they live in about 6 million homes. A Roomba will collect about 300 pounds of dirt in its lifetime. It covers about 240,000 square feet of ground, and one Roomba travels about 704.6 miles in its lifetime. And interestingly, they are ridden by cats, dogs, ferrets, rabbits, turtles, hybrids, babies, and many, many more things. If you guys ever want to go on YouTube and just check out Roomba. The most interesting one I found recently was Roombas fighting with knives and balloons. And I think robotics in itself creates a really interesting platform for sort of innovation in many levels. Just to step back, just to think about how we collectively think about design, and it's really about asking the right questions. So the information that we feel founds the basis for processes, asking questions around business, which is market factors. It's understanding what's possible technologically, and it's connecting those with the end users. The interesting things that actually happen are the connections in between that, between market factors and technological possibilities. That's where sort of platform opportunities are revealed. Between technology and user needs, that's where new experiences are created. Between user needs and market factors, that's where brand opportunities are created. This becomes an interesting sort of foundation for any design process. The goal, of course, is to create kind of a balanced criteria to sort of base the design process around and drive towards a brand win, which kind of moves the business forward, moves the brand forward. It creates a platform win, which is really about, making sure you've got the ideal feature set, ideal form, the right price, and ultimately also creating a product that engages, people with new memorable behaviors. And so, to bring it back down to sort of the ground, we want to just, talk a little bit about the story around how the Roomba was created. And but with that, though, and think about the sort of the overall project that we were trying to do. And really, the original Roomba was really a US-centric design, perceived as too US-centric. The goal of the project was to extend the reach, specifically to sort of increase market share within Asia, specifically. Elevate the perceived quality of the product, improve the user interaction, extend the product portfolio, in many ways address the price point, right, in terms of increasing creating a high price point actually for the product, or increasing perceived value of the product. But all of that done within an existing mechanical architecture where we were trying to control costs with little or no impact to the cost of goods, or very manageable impact on the cost of goods. But interestingly, no process really starts without a level of alignment.
Right. So one of the things that you can do that really needs to set up a design program, or any program really for success, there's a number of things that you can do. But one of the things that we want to communicate is really developing an approach, a design approach, and a process approach that sets your program up for success. Some of the things we've learned through the process is having a business and product strategy. So having enough time, planning in advance, research activities, the discovery activities that are sometimes needed to really understand who your user is, understand the marketplace, market relevance, the technology strategy. So is this product going to be a level of refresh, or is it a reinvent? So a lot of times programs are scoped as a refresh, but as they're going through the process, there's quite a bit of reinvention that happens throughout the process. Also the brand strategy, so having a really strong understanding of where the product fits within the global brand, as well as the product positioning internally with other products. And then the manufacturing strategy, so really understanding what your manufacturing limitations or capabilities are. Because as you go through the design process, sometimes you're challenging some of those. So talking about a little bit more on internal alignment, so it's pivotal. It needs to be developed, and basically one of the key things is aligning all the stakeholders. So basically developing a process and aligning stakeholders to those processes. So you may think that your core team is empowered, and they may realize once they go through the process that once they show a design to, say, a president or a CEO who maybe hasn't been engaged or doesn't really understand the scope of the work, they may veto it down. So understanding who your core team is and understanding who the key stakeholders internally are, and having that alignment up front is critical to the success of the program. So having all those stakeholders, having an understanding of the process and the development process you're going to go through is critical for success.
I think one of the things as well is just that, that top line item is that design really is only one component within this kind of complex and multifaceted process. So understanding how design can work effectively, can either can participate in the process, and when it can effectively lead the process is also a very important part of just this alignment. Knowing how that's going to play out at the outset of a project is really, really critical to enable all the sort of teams to work effectively. So jumping a little bit across to the process itself, assuming everything is aligned beautifully, and we know where we're heading, it's really about understanding who we design the product for. So it's really, translating consumer research to understand, the target for the product. So in the process we applied to this, it was really kind of about creating a believable and reliable target for iRobot. It's capturing and communicating the reality of the user. So personas really represent the sort of common attitudes and aspirations of the demographics that you're targeting for. It's about understanding their attitudes, in this case about sort of cleaning and how they sort of integrate those within the home. It's kind of the potential use context, and not only their affinity for the iRobot brand itself, but kind of more of the sort of general sort of broader sphere of brand affinities. And so we use these to sort of help the company keep the sort of personas and targets kind of at the front of the conversation, and kind of keep those in mind throughout this development process. It also helps guide the focus of the design process, in relationship to developing the design itself, and also just in terms of some of the other things we'll get into, just the relationship of things to do with the sort of physical design of the product, where it fits in the home, but things like color, materials, and finish. So we, based on contextual research, we developed a number of personalities, or personas, and evolved basically a kind of a view of who they are and the things that surround their life. I don't think if you would want to.
Yeah, one of the personas serve multiple purposes. Again, it goes back to making sure that everybody's aligned with who we're designing the product for. And really, this helps take more of an objective approach to the decision-making process when you're both looking at industrial design solutions, but also CMS solutions. Color, finished material, specifically color, can be a highly contentious and subjective decision to make on your product. So having a target consumer and a lifestyle and an understanding of who you're designing for is really important. So that's where having a persona set is important as part of it.
This was a 2011 project, by the way, when I passed across there some of the imagery there. It was very 2011. But I think all in all, basically, when we sort of, even though we were addressing a broad range of personas and trying to sort of think about those kind of from a global perspective, at the end of the day, we kind of sum it up that the individuals who were targeting were basically, all in all, sort of tech enthusiasts, and they tended to be like almost like one of the first of their peers to sort of understand and identify with the sort of the purpose of the technology. And they're house proud. They have a kind of cleaning priority, brand trust, and where this product sort of fits in the context of the home. I mean, there's a significant the time barrier aspect of it also comes into it. So these are kind of like some of the sort of unifying principles around it and so on. The second part of it of kind of creating kind of the sort of I guess the background or context for the design is developing design attributes, or developing basically a visual and verbal kind of understanding of how we want to talk about the potential product experience we're designing for. And these attributes actually were not necessarily only unique to a sort of floor care category. These are attributes that we were developing to describe the sort of the personality of consumer robots within iRobot itself. So it really captures the visual and verbal attributes to define the character of the product experience. We developed 3 of these. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I want to just sort of share a little bit of the flow of the process with you guys. But the first one when I'm thinking about iRobot was this kind of level of functional precision. So it's about capturing and managing every detail in this precise and consistent manner. So it's alignment of, make sure everything's perfectly aligned. Bringing every detail, action, material, and finish needs to be carefully considered. So it's this level of precision that you would expect out of a robotic product. On the other side, it has to fit within people's lives, so this kind of level of humanized intelligence. So it's capturing this kind of inherent intelligence of iRobot products, but it's a matter of how you basically relate them to kind of a human-centered or user-centered experience. So it's like the smarts, the human, the intelligent, the intuitive, and the simple. So taking complexity and simplifying it. Actually, there was the third one there is design sophistication. And so the level is obviously ensuring that the products are actually cool and they're desired and they fit. So you're taking robotics, you're making it work with within a human context. But then, of course, these products fit in a very competitive consumer product space. So this, basically then bringing a level of design sophistication. With the groundwork set, it really is about transforming this sort of thinking into action. And so the exploration was really about collaboration. I think something maybe Derek, you can talk about in terms of how, I guess, we as a design company and you as iRobot and a corporation.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is a lot of times consultants are seen as just overpaid, come in, quick fix, you know, to come in, do the job, and be done. And I think really you need the approach that I think we want to really message here is that you're a design partner. I spent most of my life as a consultant, similar to Richard too, and I think that you try to really partner with companies, and you want to really develop that relationship. So you're not just doing one job and then moving on to the next. You're really trying to set up really a brand and a product for success, a long-term success, and really get in as a long-term partner. Obviously, me being internal to iRobot, we're a very small group within, the design group is very small within iRobot, so it still makes sense to utilize outside resources to help us with this. But it has been a very collaborative effort. My job is also to align the key stakeholders. A lot of times it's our VPs, it's our senior people in marketing, and get aligned with Richard and basically his approach, and engage them throughout this process. So having an internal champion, I think, is really key, and also setting up the relationship so it's not just a one-time project. You're really trying to develop a long-term strategic relationship.
And I think in the context of this project, some projects are kind of, have length to them. Some of them are very much driven by accelerating, time frames. So this is one of those projects that was actually driven by a very accelerated time frame. So as it related to collaborative decision making, I mean, this is actually probably a pretty true reflection. There was very few formal presentations in the sense that we basically created a collaborative workspace. We came together, we explored the work. The design team and the client team came together in that space and made decisions really quickly. In other contexts, there are obviously more formal processes, but if you can do this every time, it's the most rich and direct way of doing it when you're actually bringing everybody together into the space. And I think with a lot of the work we've done with Derek and the team, we've now actually reached that level where we can actually make a lot of decisions both with the senior team, because I think they're very happy to get engaged in kind of the creative process and roll their sleeves up and make decisions.
Yeah, I think as a consultant, you come in and you don't know how hands-on people are really going to be to the process. So I think, again, if you have people internally that can basically educate you as a consultant, coming in to the level of interaction and engagement you're going to have, the more engagement, I guess it's a good and bad sometimes, but I think that ultimately you're just trying to develop that relationship and understanding of who your client is, and how engaged or how hands-off they want you to be.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting part when you think about, a lot of you guys sort of entering kind of design profession is that, design being one small component of how you make design work. And I think figuring out how to work in whatever client context, because they're all very different. Every time you start a project, one of the first things you really have to sort of understand is what's the kind of work dynamic, how can we best make the design process be as effective as it can be.
I think we probably also, design is something that we find that most people want to be pretty engaged on. It's probably the most forward-facing component of your product. It's also pretty exciting. You get to see the early conceptualization, and of your product language. So I think most people want to be engaged in that process.
And I think in this case, because there's a lot of passion up to this on CEO level within iRobot, and I think in terms of how design is being communicated, it's just this level of, these products are like, carry the brand over the longest, over the long haul, and so I think communicating sort of the value of the physical product in that sort of brand context and business context is really important. So this is just sharing a little bit of, the process still goes like this. We create ideas quickly. We create a lot of different ones. And as you know, the tools to be able to visualize quickly are accelerating. The physical product we're working on, we're also working on product interaction. This is about developing a sort of three-tiered interface strategy, basically, for this product family. Again, this was done basically sketching it up, visualizing it, and making decisions really quickly. And then just sort of visualizing the free cash. Now, interestingly, as the product line has evolved, and I don't know if I can actually allude to this, is quite clear, is that this is all about putting the interface on the physical product. As we're evolving the product platform, most of this interface is going off the product.
Yeah, you see more and more products that are going more app-based, and so this product is very much a a physical, tactile UI user interface. So there's a whole other aspect of design, right? That you have to start blending and merging and having a holistic design language between the on-product and off-product experience. So there's a whole other aspect of this when you start to engage.
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is really all about, there's one physical brand touch point, which is the clean button, but beyond that, most of that can be now handled off the product. And by doing that, it not only, it allows other avenues to sort of communicate with the brand once you've moved that physical interface into the sort of app environment. So again, and it also sort of lends itself to sort of just like simplification again, uncomplicating this whole idea of robotics living within the home environment. The other component, again, which is kind of moving beyond just the physical product, and this was, even though we were designing one robot, one of the biggest strategies that was going at the time, and still is just the whole idea of where to color materials and finish it. iRobot basically serve a broad global market. Communicating that strategy internally was a very important one.
Right. Again,
bringing a variety of different global stakeholders together. So the idea is, and the idea that trends drive color. They have to fit within the sort of business and category context, and then you have to drag them into sort of, just kind of the contextual trends that apply to the overall product platform. Now, what came out of that in this case is that we were trying to address color and material themes for the entire iRobot platform, in addition to just the dry floor care platform. So this was kind of a broader strategy that was taking basically what would be the 600, 700, and now 800 product platforms, the wet floor cleaning platforms, and potential future outdoor platforms as well. So trying to create a color and materials and finish strategy that could work across the entire portfolio.
Yeah, so one of the things that we wanted to touch on here is a lot of times you're looking at a very solution-specific application without necessarily standing back and seeing the big picture in terms of how CMF plays a role in the overall brand strategy and within certain product lines within your brand. So, Richard and I have gone through this process where we have to be very strategic about a solution, but it really has to fit into the whole. Like for example, with the dry floor care category, we might be looking at one product within the dry floor category. So, how do you differentiate? How do you land at a solution for a high end, a low end, and a mid, and a middle? So that's where the personas really help drive some of those decision-making decisions in the process. But you do need to take a step further back from your specific product lines and look at a holistic product portfolio. So we have an outdoor product category. We have a wet floor product category. We have a dry floor category. So understanding how the CMF works across all of those is important. So.
And then as we draw a bit more specific to the dry floor category, just again, just have a little bit of a window into the process. We kind of created kind of a portfolio of themes, and not to go through every single one of those. It's really driven by visual themes that we basically tell stories about why they fit and how it should fit within the category, and then creating sort of applications of those themes that we basically is done both in a combination of tools, really, sort of visual renderings, material samples, actual painted products as we get into high resolution. I think it's interesting. This, you think about design of creating the physical object, probably within the context of building a story around the portfolio. The actual sort of CMF strategy, given the different regions that iRobot want to extend their business became a very, very critical component of the overall strategy. And, you know, again, depending on everybody's kind of, I guess, knowledge and understanding of CMF was also a very subjective discussion. I think anybody who's involved in doing CMF understands that very well. It's kind of one of the most tricky parts of the development process to manage and develop and communicate and make stick, basically.
Yeah, and I think going back to sort of the alignment, understanding like who your stakeholders are. I remember specific one instance, you know, we were showing renderings much like the ones that Richard just had up. And because it was just a rendering, you know, there's a very strong highlight and dark shadow effect. One person said, you know, is that your design intent to actually have a black and a white, a light-based line going through the middle of the product? And it was an artifact of the rendering. So really kind of prepping people so they understand what they're looking at, that these are kind of high-level renderings. And then we'll get into the next fidelity is once we understand sort of the broad color category that we're in, we start developing physical samples. People respond obviously to physical, you know, CMF is a tactile and highly visual experience, so just looking at renderings is very difficult for people to visualize sometimes. So understanding what they're looking for, setting them up so they understand what they're looking at in advance of that is important.
And I think part of the overall idea with this particular product line also was about sort of elevating the sort of perceived quality of the product. When iRobot launched their first robot, they were unique in the marketplace. I mean, so it could almost just be robotic. That's all it needed to be because it was just clean. But it was you know, it's now an extremely competitive space out there. So things that weren't of particular importance for iRobot when the first product was launched was really all about just technology making it work. It was kind of an interesting, you know, in many ways argued as novelty to now being involved in a very, very competitive market where, although iRobot are the authentic player in the market, they're competing with the likes of Samsung, who have, you know, can basically turn on their sort of downstream manufacturing team and turn products over really quickly. So managing the sort of the quality or perceived quality of iRobot's products and shaping that within their kind of unique position in the market was an increasing challenge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so quite often you think, well, you know, design's about, you know, we've created a great looking product, we've got, you know, we've aligned the color around it, we've aligned all the stakeholders around what the product should be. But that's really, we're probably not even halfway there yet.
Right.
So this is really all about, now we have to really make it stick. And this is about transferring to engineering, aligning with suppliers, driving home the details, not in a design context, but more in a sort of operational manufacturing context, transferring to engineering, prototype support, you know, tooling, first article inspections, and managing expectations. That's cost, time, people. And as Derek will testify, given he just got back from Japan, it's lots and lots of product.
Yeah, so this is just an example of just the mechanical, you know, typical industrial design handoff is to hand it off to engineering. And as consultants, you know, a lot of times what you see, you know, 12 months, 18 months later on the marketplace is not exactly what you had intended. So really, there's a whole process that happens internally, obviously putting through, you know, carrying forth your design through the engineering processes, the manufacturing processes, the costing and operation processes.
I was interested on this one, just in terms of where the design was, is that this particular development also was very much about maintaining an existing architecture. And design really had to work within, I mean, it sounds like it's really sort of simplifying it, but there's kind of probably about a 4 to 5 millimeter window we had to sort of change the design and hopefully improve the perceived value of this product. So it was a very, although it seemed simple at face value, it was one of the more challenging projects to make design, you know, work really effectively and change with the quality of the product.
Yeah, so I think actually one of the things, this is kind of a good example, this actually design, I think it was probably initiated as a zero COGS increase, so cost of goods, which severely limits what you can do, you know, from a design standpoint. So I think as designers, you have to sometimes push that. Basically, your job is to put forth a design that is compelling and differentiates from other products that are your competitors' products, but also your customers' pre-existing designs. So right now, it looks very simple, but there's actually some additional parts in here that the previous design. This basically was almost a reskin, right, over an existing product, right? We had a previous generation that had an architecture was already established. They were making modifications to the cleaning head, which is this part in the middle there next to the red. But overall, it was just a reskin. So this design actually has some more decorative parts on top, which cost money. They're painted. Definitely adds cost of goods. But the business unit made the decision that that industrial design, the flexibility of the design and the solution is valued more than that extra few cents that they would be saving if they got rid of those details. So a lot of times you're challenging existing manufacturing processes, or you're inventing new processes. So, for example, we show the clean button here. This is a new clean button that's using a new process called IMD. It's an in-mold decoration process. We don't have the luxury of having a whole team that's experimenting and looking at new processes like Samsung. That's kind of what their design language is built around, is this in-mold decoration process. There's tons of cost savings around it, but it really affords you a lot of flexibility from a design perspective. So we had never done this before. So we have to get out there and start engaging suppliers, validating suppliers, understanding the process. So this is just one step in the process to follow. It also takes literally thousands. This is one of our factory, assembly factories, where we have over 3,000 people employed at this one factory. We have 2 factories. So 3,000 people are employed there. They're making, I'm not sure how many actually products that more or less they send out a day. This is one of our warehouses. So it takes tons and tons of material, thousands of people to really make this design come together. All hand assembled, right? So it requires your team to be really hands-on. Sometimes you have to go on-site and be hands-on, problem-solving, hands-on. This is some of our engineers, showing how to assemble the product, because they're actually designing. As an engineer, you might be thinking you're designing the product for cost or a certain assembly, but you really have to think from a usability standpoint how the factory worker is going to assemble it.
And I think it's important to associate like when I'm actually speaking for you, so I know how much travel that you've actually done on
Yeah.
the extension of the design process today is international, and it really requires significant amount of hands-on time, out there in the factory.
Yep. I mean, last year we had to, since this was a new process, we engaged 3 different suppliers. So in order to ensure we actually have a product that is successful, that looks good, that meets our cosmetic requirements, we had to support multiple paths and multiple suppliers through the process. So a lot of travel, a lot of long hours, but ultimately you're trying to ensure that you have a product that you launch that is a success. You also do get to see the world. So this is like Hong Kong, and this is the Kyoto Visitor Temple in Japan. You do get to see some really great places in the process and travel the world. You get to eat some really interesting and some great food. Some food that might not appeal to you at first, but actually it kind of pushes you as well in terms of trying different things. You also get to learn a little bit about our communication differences and challenges. We have to interpret things. I'm not sure what this means. I think it means that it's fresh grass is sleeping, it's growing. But ultimately, these are the people that are making your product come to life. So you're developing great relationships with people that are 150% committed to making your product succeed. New relationships. We have a factory. This is our Kenyat factory. They just built a new building, a new assembly building for us. So they were launching this. This was just earlier this year. So it literally takes hundreds and hundreds of people internally to your organization to develop these relationships, to actually make your product come to life and be a success.
And so think about kind of the overall results for this product. Is that the product was successful in the sense that it did actually extend the global reach. The perceived quality of the product was improved in terms of what we managed to do. I mean, the amount of effort and time actually getting some of the first processes actually that allowed us to do it was based on reforming the relationship that Derek was talking to. We've got to the 3-tier product platform. We managed to maintain the existing mechanical architecture. There was some impact on the cost of goods, right?
Yeah. But again, the trade-off, the business, they made a decision that it was worth that cost increase.
And I think the other thing, and you can talk about this is the first time where design actually was discussed as actually adding some significant value within iRobot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that when you start seeing numbers increase, and without the forward-facing design solution, that's the thing that really sells the product, off the shelf. So people internally really have started. They were skeptics at the beginning. I think some key stakeholders within the organization, but now we're also building the value and the understanding of what design can do internally. We're there to help drive and push the product and elevate the product. We're a premium product brand, so we have to be able to be pushing the envelope in terms of design and product solutions.
Yeah. So I mean, just in terms of the interesting part of this was that this was launched and again it was 2011. It was the best-selling vacuum cleaner in its price range in Japan. And that was kind of across not just robotic vacuum cleaners, that was the whole category itself. And and a lot of the success was really attributable to the new design language, which was kind of again the first time where there was some actual numbers that actually proved that out within the organization.
I think it astounded people that we were able to launch the highest price point product in the Japan market, which is really a tough market to launch product. They also tend to be much more receptive to robotic solutions, but it was still it's an expensive product. A $600 price point to launch at that, where everybody else was a few $100s less than you, and then actually still have it be the #1 selling product in that marketplace. People were pretty astounded. So it was a combination of things in terms of quality and reliability, but the most forward-facing thing is the industrial design. So I think you have to have a solution that fits the market and basically differentiates. So, we actually brought as a demo. If nobody's seen our product before, this is not a propaganda promotion.
Just going to clean the cup.
So this is a product that we worked on. It just launched earlier this year.
You guys all know this better, right?
Yeah. So this incorporated 3 of these new processes actually that we were talking about, this in-mold decoration. So it was a challenge to get there. We actually did this within 6 months. This product actually was initially scoped as a low-cost CMF solution.
This will run around.
Yeah, so we'll have the cleanest auditorium. And we have about 3-4 minutes left if we have any questions from the audience. Right there.
Thank you for great presentation. I'm from Japan, but not yet purchased this great stuff yet, sorry. Could you explain a little bit about your intention in terms of how you want to affect people's emotion or feeling by this product? Roomba is in quite much unique position in our house. Maybe it's only one moving around except for human being or set. So what kind of intention you put into this product while you're designing in terms of people's emotion?
Yeah.
I think that's a very good question to ask. I think we can both have an answer to that. I think the whole idea of how robotics are fitting into people's lives, I think is not necessarily answered by this product alone. I think it's going to be an ongoing sort of quest to understand how robotics kind of integrate. it's certainly one of the largest kind of, it's a very, very big growth area. I mean, I think in some of the additional work that we've been doing with iRobot and going on elsewhere in the world, is sort of also in the sort of healthcare telepresence world, so how robots actually fit and help people in other contexts as well. And a lot of that's, less so about this, I think from how it fits into life, this is still sort of visually following kind of a consumer product aesthetic. I think that changes up a little bit more when you're putting robots into an environment where healthcare may be concerned. And so I think if you look at the world of robots that are out there are doing that type of thing, they range from things that are very humanoid to things that are very mechanical. I think that quest hasn't quite been solved, in my opinion, yet, but it's certainly kind of a big part of the whole challenge, I think, of how it works.
Yeah, I think it gets down to, I think it's new, it's a novel experience, right? And they're not ubiquitous. They're not like televisions in people's home yet. It's also a very animated product. So I think by nature of it, it has a character. How you manifest that with the industrial design, some of our competitors have tried to, have taken more of a fun, kind of very approachable, kind of humanesque aesthetic. We actually wanted to go a different way than that. We're more technical. We're sort of about the precision and technical aspect of it. So that's sort of where the industrial design ended up where it did. But just by nature of the product, I think it has a very much an animated and it connects with people.
See, he's a very good example. It's like, it's interfacing. And but also, interesting that levels with this particular product. Again, going back to the other thing of like how people actually create personalities for the product. I think again that the YouTube channel is the best place to understand how people currently sort of think about these kind of products and how they fit. Everybody evolves a persona for the product.
They do. I think it's like 90 or 95% of the people actually name their Roombas.
How about up there?
Sorry, do you mind if I just ask a question? I got the mic and I'll pass it back on. Richard, Derek, thanks for talking about this. My question is, I guess the talk has been mostly around a product where the user is the buyer. I'm wondering, in a situation where the user isn't the buyer, does that change the fundamental process of design at all, or do you still design for the user and let sales and marketing figure it out?
That's interesting. So a lot of times we go through this process where we let sales and marketing kind of drive the product design. They're stakeholders. They're one of the stakeholders in the process. But ultimately, I think they're responsible for selling, the design solution. So, we allow them to have a voice in the process. They're definitely, we want to understand what their needs are and their understanding. So I think, much like a user, they have a need in the process too. So, but we don't necessarily design the product around what they tell us to design. Right? Usually that comes from our product management group.
I think in the sense of, refer to the healthcare telepresence sort of product, which is very different than this product. I think in that case, we are really thinking about a whole different set of stakeholders in the process. We've got the patient, we've got the doc, we've got technicians, and we've got a different sort of environment which the product has to work in. So it does have a big influence on how it kind of changes the overall personality of the product, the behaviors that we may build into the product. So in that context, I think it's very much about where we approach that is really doing primary research in the field to sort of understand the context in depth, so you can actually address kind of product solution.
So same process, with more opinions at the time.
Basically, it's just, I think it's critical within any design process to understand who your end users are. I think that's about that little triangle I was talking to earlier. Is really asking those questions around the understanding of the business context, what technology can actually achieve, and who you're actually targeting the product on, connecting those three types.
Yep, we have time for one more question, and then both Richard and Derek will be up here for a little bit too.
Product development question. So engineering comes after design? It's not going on in parallel with design?
No, I think that was maybe there isn't kind of a the fantastic sort of like over the wall mentality. Product development is fully integrated from the beginning. I think in the context of iRobot is a technology-driven company.
We are. Yeah.
So that was an artifact of the presentation more than the reality of product development?
Yeah, I mean, I think this case study was basically reskin an existing design, right, with zero COGS increase. And I think that through the process, you challenge some of those requirements at the beginning. But yeah, it's not necessarily, it doesn't work either way, where you basically engineer it and then you say skin it, or you come up with the designs, because we try that too, where we say, well, give me the industrial design and then I'll engineer around it. You really need to be, it needs to be working in parallel, in tandem. You really do need internal, and I mean, whether or not you use an external design resource, you need to engage them early enough to challenge some of those engineering requirements.
Yeah, I think the criteria that was a very technical criteria even behind this project.
Engineers are in the same place as the designers, or are they elsewhere on the planet?
No, we actually work hand in hand internally. Yeah, and typically, it's new. It's new because they've always basically taken the approach of, it's a technology company, so we have always taken the approach of, we'll engineer it, making sure it works, and then we'll design it. And they're learning that we have to follow a process where you're working in parallel, earlier on.
Well, I think a little bit of the shift is that robotics are not as unique as they once were. So I think the level where I think iRobot almost had the permission to be a technology-driven company, therefore whatever technology we're doing was still sort of a unique proposition. Over time, they now, particularly in the dry or the floor cleaning space, it's an incredibly competitive space. So those two naturally have to merge more.
Thanks. Yep, unfortunately that's all the time we have for right now. There will be, as we said before, 3 concurrent sessions. One will be here and the other 2 will be over in Aldrich. So you can see your schedules for those speakers. Thank you very much.